So now everybody here on the East Coast knows all about Jeff. So if they want your autograph later, Jeff, you know why.
Wait, repeat that because you just recorded. No, I'll just play it.
There's always one. There's always one. All right. So as Clarence stated, our topic for tonight is continuous motion and the act of shooting. I think one of the biggest misnomers about continuous motion, we all learned about it growing up playing in the backyard or playing at the park, everybody calling everything an and one when it actually wasn't. And I think, again, this is one of those rules where it kind of gets manipulated a little bit, whether it's by the officials or it is by the players. But in general, just talking about continuous motion, we have to think about motion in a scientific way. So I apologize if I'm taking you back to middle school or high school, but I think it's important for us to remember that the first law of motion came from Isaac Newton. And Isaac Newton stated that every object is in a state of uniform motion and it tends to remain in that state unless there's some kind of external force that gets applied to it. And so again, if I'm standing still and somebody comes and runs up on me and pushes me, either with their hands or with their body, I'm going to move. Okay. But if I'm already moving and now an external force comes and makes contact, well, that force may not move me as much, or it may move me in a different direction. So those are the kind of things we want to start thinking about when we're applying the rule of continuous motion into what is going on. So we're going to talk a little bit about just definition wise. I like to always go over what continuous motion is, when it applies, what are the key principles that we have to keep in mind. As always, I like to incorporate videos so that you can see things in action. And then why are we so inconsistent with this rule as officials and how can we get better? Again, I'm always of the mindset that there's nothing that we do as officials, whereas if we make a mistake, we can't rectify it. We can't grow from that. We can't learn from that. So we're always striving to get better. So the rule book basically states that continuous motion, whether you're in your IABO's rule guide or you're in your National Federation rule book, it starts with and applies to a try or a tap. And this also includes free throws, where there's a foul by the defense during the interval, which begins the habitual throwing motion that starts a try or with the touching on a tap and ends when the ball is clearly in flight. Now, again, the habitual throwing motion for players looks different depending on how they're looking to release the ball. And I think this is the first place where officials start to get themselves in trouble because coaches often or players often think because the player hasn't released the ball that that's not continuous motion. And again, it starts with the throwing motion, which means they may not have actually gotten to that point yet. They may have actually started it, get fouled, and then continue with the motion. And that's why we have the continuous motion rule applied. So again, things to think about as we're moving on. It also states that if an opponent fouls a player, if an opponent fouls after a player has started a tap or try for goal, they are allowed to complete the customary arm movement that goes along with it. Even if it means they pivot or they step through, they can complete that motion to finish releasing the ball. And again, they're only granted when their usual throwing motion has started. Again, doesn't mean they've released it yet, but they've started it. Then there's a foul and before the ball is in flight. So again, we allow them to finish the pivot or step through or whatever else that they're doing. Now, continuous motion does not apply if your teammate fouls. So if I'm A1 and I'm going up and there's contact, and the reason why B1 is making contact with me is because A2 pushed B1 into me, there is no continuous motion on this. The ball becomes dead immediately as soon as the whistle is blown to assess the foul. All right. So The rules guide. So we use the IABO's rule guide. Not sure what you all use there in Chicago. So I just went through the Federation rule book. Now the IABO's rule guide states that continuous motion has no significance unless there is a foul by the defense. So again, we have to be mindful of who's committing the foul between the time when the try begins and the ball is in flight. All right. And again, the IABO's rule guide repeats the same thing. The try begins with the usual throwing motion that precedes a try or when the ball is touched on a tap. So as you can see in the photo on the left, the gentleman that's driving, okay, so we have some illegal contact right now. He's probably going to step again before he goes to release the ball. And we're going to allow that even if we've blown the whistle. We're going to allow him to finish his movement, his motion. Okay, it's the same thing in the photo on the right. There's contact. You can see 14 White, his arm is being grabbed, but he's already started his habitual throwing motion. We're going to allow him to finish that. It doesn't mean we wait for him to do it and then blow the whistle. We blow the whistle as soon as we see the contact, but we allow him to finish his habitual throwing motion so that he can have a continuous motion play. Again, if a defensive player fouls after an offensive player has started their tap or try for goal or on a free throw, again, we allow the shooter to complete their movement, and we also allow them to pivot or step while they're holding the ball. Now, again, this particular photo, we see this player is being fouled twice. Once in front with his jersey being pulled, and from behind, he's also getting hit. So again, we're going to allow him to put that second foot down and drive up to the basket if that's what he was intending to do, which I'm going to assume he is because look where his head is looking. He's looking up towards the basket. Okay, so again, we're going to allow him to finish that movement. And if the ball goes in, then we have an and one. If not, we're still going to be shooting. Okay, continuous motion in the IABO's rule guide states that if the shooter's teammate fouls an opponent, okay, so we see White actually creating the illegal contact here after the shooter has begun their usual throwing motion that precedes the tap or try for goal, and the ball is not in flight, then continuous motion does not apply. Okay, and that's simply because it's the offensive player that is creating the illegal contact. All right, so that's the difference in the rule. Defense creates the illegal contact. We're looking for continuous motion. Offense creates the contact. Ball is dead. Okay, continuous motion does not apply. All right, so ultimately, what is continuous motion? Again, it's that thing that the player does that habitually precedes their release for the ball. And again, we know not all players shoot alike. All right, the opponent fouls after the player has started their try. They're permitted to continue through with their arm movement. They're permitted to step through, pivot, and then release the ball. Okay? And again, continuous motion does not apply if the teammate of the shooter commits the foul. Okay? And what's the rationale behind this rule? Well, obviously, we all know if we've ever played basketball, either in our backyard or at the park, at the rec, at the Y, Boys and Girls Club, or in our sports team. The whole purpose of it is to ensure that the player who's attempting to score, that we're not stopping them from gaining that opportunity. We're not double penalizing them by one, assessing the foul, but then not allowing them to finish what they were doing. Okay, so again, we want to provide them with that opportunity to continue scoring. All right, so what principles go along with that? Again, continuous means without interruption. We have to understand the definition of what is a try. Okay, and by rule, it's an attempt to throw the ball into your own team's basket. All right, the player is then trying for goal when the player has the ball and in the official's judgment is throwing or attempting to throw the ball for a goal. Okay, so again, we have to believe that the player was taking a shot. Okay, and this is why it's also important to understand what a try is, because a player can release the ball on a try and then realize when they release it, oh, that shot didn't feel good. Okay. And what do we always teach players? If you've ever coached, we tell them to follow your shot. And sometimes players follow their shot and they actually get their own rebound. They get the air ball and then they put it back up and everybody's screaming like, well, they can't do that. Well, wasn't that a try for goal? Doesn't matter if it was an air ball. It was a try for goal. So that's why your judgment is very important in understanding what a try actually means. Because here, for continuous motion, if you deem that to be a legitimate try, and now there's contact by the defense, then we should be applying the principles of continuous motion. Okay? Player has to be in the act of shooting, or still holding the ball and touching the ball when the foul occurs. Because once the ball has been released, then continuous motion no longer applies. Okay, so again, that's key as well. If they've already released the ball and now there's contact, that's not continuous motion. Okay. Again, the foul has to be committed by the defense, and it applies to any type of foul that's committed. All right. And the play is not complicated by expiration of time. So again, this could be happening when the quarter is about to expire or the shot clock is about to expire. You could still have that contact that takes place, and then we're going to have a boop and one. All right. So again, be mindful of that as you're looking to apply this in your game. Again, the shooter does not have to release the ball because sometimes the contact prevents them from releasing the ball. Okay. And again, it must be continuous without any type of interruption initiated by the player in the act of shooting. So the offensive player, the player with the ball, does not get to initiate illegal contact, then go up and expect an and one. Okay. So again, something else, another principle that we have to be mindful of. All right. So what does it look like? Let's look at some videos. All right. All right, so again, 23 red, driving to the basket, contact from two players, not in legal guarding position. And you notice she was able to power through them to release the ball. But again, we already know there's going to be a foul, but she's still allowed to complete that habitual movement to get herself to the basket, to release the ball. Okay. And again, as I always say every week that I come here, the best way to learn about things is to watch videos, and the best critic of video is yourself. So if you can get your own game footage, this is me actually in a game. Okay, so again, why did I use this? I used it one for continuous motion, but I also use it. I'm just going to go back really quick. I also use it to show reporting to the table and making sure your signals and mechanics are appropriate. Hustling to the reporting area. So again, notice my hand goes up, boom, and then I stand and wait. You have to give the player an opportunity to finish what they're doing. All right, so one more time. All right. All right, so let's move on to our next video. Okay, and again, the play is originating from the trails PCA, and notice the trail follows that all the way in. Okay, so we'll watch it again. Probably the trail probably could have closed down on that as the player was driving, would have given herself the same play. She would have been looking at the same thing, but she just would have closed down because the responsibility of the trail on any shot is to close down for rebounding. Okay. So again, she stayed wide initially, which is good, but as the player gets closer to the basket, she should have closed down closer to the three-point arc. Again, it would have given her the same line of vision on that play. She would have probably made the exact same call. And what's even better in this play is the lead, who actually starts to look at this, doesn't put a whistle on it because that's not the lead's primary. That's across the basket line. So this is also a great opportunity to see what it looks like to trust your partner, okay, and let them take the play in their primary coverage area. And notice again, the player continues a step and then releases the ball, even though the trail had already blown the whistle. Boom. And that player continues up. So again, just be patient with what you're doing. Don't let a coach bait you into, oh, that was before, that was on the floor. No, just tell them rule 4, continuous motion, because trust me, they're going to want the same call done on their end if their player does it. All right, so here we have continuous motion on a fast break. Okay, so let's watch the lead get into position. And does a very good job. Very easy going on his mechanics. Lets the contact happen. Calls the foul. Scores the basket. Reports the foul at the spot. Block. And then he's going to go to the table. So let's watch that whole sequence one more time. And again, does a great job. Doesn't have a lot of depth on the end line, but got himself in a position where he could see the ball handler, the defender. He actually didn't have to look up to see if the basket went in because, again, that's what your partners are for. But easy for him to see, and this is early in the game. So again, as I've said in previous weeks, when you're in good position, you will see what you need to see to now determine if you need to call something that's taking place. All right. So again, it's not complicated. Let the game happen before you. Referee the defense, observe the offense. You'll know whether or not you need to make a call. And then once you make that call, once you make that ruling, it's easy as pie. Right. And actually, as you start to advance in doing this, the game actually starts to slow down for you. All right. So we'll look at video number 4. Okay. And so now we have a play where the player comes out of the trails PCA into the lane. So we have a double coverage area. We could have a double whistle, which we actually end up having here. You notice how the lead closes down. Lead has a whistle, but gives that call up to the trail because that's where the play originated from. So that's what we mean by having a patient whistle. So if you watch the lead again, she's wide. She's going to close down, whistle, and watch. She's just going to nod to her partner like, yep, you got it. Okay, so unfortunately, we can't see the trail. But again, the trail clearly knows this originated from their PCA. They're watching that drive down the lane. There's illegal contact, double whistle, lead acknowledges, we move on. Okay, now the best indicator of this being a good play, watch the coach on the sideline. All right, so I'm just going to play that again. So White's on defense. That's the coach for White. And so she's telling her players right now, you got to get there. You got to beat them to the spot. So again, there's that recognition of when you're doing things the right way, sometimes the coaches inadvertently are letting you know that's the correct call. They're not going to pat you on the back. But when they're telling their kids to play better defense, get your hands up, move your feet, it's an acknowledgement that, yes, you're actually calling what you need to be calling. All right. We have another one here. Okay, so again, a lot of contact coming down the lane. Lead closes down, has the best look because by this time, with the player driving, the defense is behind and the lead has the best look on the contact. And again, does a very good job of just standing there, letting the play come, refereeing the defense, observing the offense, and then look how easily the partners just move to where they need to be. So again, observing the game, getting in good position, and then going with the flow. We have a dead ball now. Lead officials going to report. And while the leads are reporting, the other two officials get to where they need to be. By the time the lead official is done reporting at the table, these kids should be lined up and ready to go for free throws. We're not rushing them, but again, we have to understand, let's just do what we need to do. I'm not involved in reporting. Let me make sure I have the shooter. Shooter's 33 white. Let's make sure I got at least 4 black on the free throw line if they want those spots. So again, all the things that we need to be thinking about in that moment, you don't get a playoff just because you're not the official that blew the whistle. You still need to be engaged in understanding what needs to happen from there. Okay? The other thing we need to be thinking about at this point in time, yes, we're going to shoot free throws, but I also have to be mindful of, look at the time on the clock. Okay, so we want to be mindful of that, especially now with shot clocks. We might have a situation right now. We don't need to have the shot clock on for the rest of this quarter. So again, this is all the stuff that you have to be thinking about in this moment while we have a dead ball. Dead ball doesn't mean free time to not think. When you hear that phrase of when the ball becomes dead, we become alive, this is what I'm talking about. The ball is dead. What do I have to be thinking about before the ball becomes live again? What do we have to be mindful of? So we have free throws. We know who the shooter is. We have to be mindful of the shot clock. And now we're going to be thinking about rebounding, especially on this second shot, because should white miss, they could have the ball again, probably going to end the quarter. If they score, black's going to get the ball, white could press. So again, all those things have to be going through my mind so that I'm getting myself ready for what could come next. We should never be in a situation where we get caught off guard. All right? And again, all this is originating out of a continuous motion play. All right, I have another video here. Okay, so now we have a call from the lead and he's sending this the other way. So we've got to pick up and try to figure out who on white commits this foul. Look at that illegal screen. Okay, so we'll watch it again. Play is going to go to the corner, and then there's going to be a screen to get the big girl free. But that screen is illegal. Okay, and again, the lead could make that call because he was where he needed to be, watching what he needed to be watching in his PCA. So again, remember, if we have a foul by the offense, no continuous motion, that ball is dead immediately. So we'll watch one more time. Okay, and if the lead got himself caught up on watching the ball because he wanted to see if the girl was going to score, he would have missed the screen right in front of him. But instead, like I said, he picked up what was going on in his PCA. Excellent call. Okay, so again, the shooter cannot gain an advantage when it's her teammate that committed the foul. So that's why that play is getting sent the other way. Here we go with another. All right, so you see the player in white is asking for a travel, but you have to ask yourself, why did she travel? Okay. So where's that contact that's taking place? When does it happen? And is that what's causing her to lose her balance and travel? Okay. And again, the defense is not in legal guarding position. She obtained it, but she didn't maintain it. And then she reaches. In fact, there's 2 reaches that actually take place. So again, part of being able to officiate continuous motion to determine whether or not we're going to have a foul on this particular play, or we're going to call the travel, is based on what we're looking at. And again, that's why I will continue to say, if you referee the defense and observe the offense, you'll have a good idea as to who did what. Okay, and the lead stands and watches this play. Actually, is going to spin back towards her. That's how she can make that play that quickly. All right, so again, we can be easily baited into a travel because we were only watching the offensive player instead of watching the defense. Okay, so again, very important to do. All right, another video here. All right, so it's our center official that comes up with this. And he actually, every time I watch this video, I think he's calling a travel first. And then I realize he's waving off the shot. But should he have waved off the shot? So again, we'll watch this from the beginning. If she got fouled while she started that habitual motion, why is he calling off the shot? She's allowed to continue that habitual throwing motion before releasing the ball. Okay. Now, ultimately, she ends up on the free throw line because they're in the bonus. But again, he's actually penalizing the offense twice because he called the foul, but then he gets rid of the basket. Okay. And actually, had he let her score that, that's 2 points. Okay. Now, again, it has nothing to do with the score, has nothing to do with the time, but you're taking points away from a player who, by rule, just earned that. So again, very important that we understand the rule and the principle of continuous motion so that we're not taking a basket away from the offense and then telling her to go to the free throw line to earn those 2 points when she just earned them. Okay? So again, very important. It's a very important thing to remember and keep in mind. She's starting her drive. There's the call. It should be and one. Okay? So again, very important. All right, this is another Connecticut conference game. And in this particular play, we see the lead official watch the play come, start, develop, and finish. Makes the ruling, lots of contact, came across the basket line for it. Okay, so we'll watch that again. The trail official should have taken this all the way to the basket because he has a great look on it. But okay, he lets the lead. All right. What I'm okay with is that the lead actually closed down to see that. Okay. But again, would have been okay coming from the trail because 15 red is not in legal guarding position. Okay. Now, what the trail official does, what you can see right here, is he's actually telling his partner the basket went in. And this is why I say, as lead officials, we don't have to worry about whether or not the ball goes in. Our partner can give us that information. All they have to do is be paying attention to what's going on. Okay? What the trail official is also probably doing right now, beyond telling him that the basket went in, he knows who the shooter is going to be. All right? So he's telling him, good basket. And then he's walking to get everybody all set and ready for the free throws that are coming, or the free throw that is coming. All right. But again, very important to be where you need to be to see what you need to see, to now determine whether or not you need to blow the whistle or not. All right. Again, like I said, I would much prefer the trail had taken this, but it's still the right call. All right. I think this might be my last video. So again, we have a situation where the player driving to the basket, contact, continues her motion, and the ref is already waving it off. Okay, so again, you're penalizing the offensive player that just worked hard to get there, and you're taking that away. He's actually saying no shot, and he's pointing to the floor as if to say it's going to be a throw-in. No, this is not a throw-in. This is 2 free throws. All right. So again, pick up where the contact happens. Now what does she do? She took one more step to release the ball. Continuous motion. Okay. And if you notice, the lead official, I'm going to play this one more time. He blows his whistle so fast, he doesn't even let the foul really happen. If he had just had a split second, slowed himself down, bam, stay there, then he would have realized, yep, that's what that was. Okay. So by the time the foul happened, he's already waving it off as no shot. Okay. So again, you're ultimately penalizing the offensive player who just did everything by the book according to continuous motion. Right? So this is where we sometimes, as officials, we get in such a rush after we make a call that we make that call worse. He would have been better off not blowing his whistle at all. All right. And sometimes we as officials, we hurt the game. All right. So that brings me into officials being inconsistent because they don't understand the rule. All right. You have to understand what continuous motion means. And in order to understand that, you have to understand by definition what it means to be in the act of shooting, whether it's a try or a tap. Okay. The other reason why we're inconsistent with this is because there's inconsistent messages and philosophies. So again, as a female official who's been in this sport with a 9-to-1 ratio with male officials, the female officials on my board, I can tell you more times than not, females, they do this and you see that play, no basket. Every time a male player drives, it's boop and one, boop and one, boop and one. Oh, well, they can handle it. Oh, they're driving. Oh, they can handle it. Again, no gender bias to this rule. No gender bias to it. Okay? We assume the try after dribble ending. We're calling stuff on the floor. But we have to also understand that if the player doesn't dribble the ball or they travel, you can't have continuous motion. You can't travel and then go to release the ball because the violation occurred first. So again, this is why we referee the defense and observe the offense, because it'll tell you whether or not there was some contact that took place that may have led to the player either losing their dribble, which is now a fumble, or traveling. All right. And the biggest one is we anticipate the play, which is what that official did in the last video. He anticipated the play. He knew she was going to drive. And as soon as he saw the contact, nope, can't be anything else. I just blew the whistle. Had he let that play start, develop, and finish, he would have blown the whistle, put his fist up in the air, stood there, let her finish her shot, and then he would have said 2 shots. All right. So again, don't anticipate the play. Let it start, develop, and finish. Okay. I don't ever want to hear an official say on the floor, because everything we do, everything the players do is on the floor. And if you go look in your rule book, whether it's the IABO Rules Guide or the National Federation book, you will not find the phrase on the floor as terminology that goes with any signal or mechanic. It doesn't exist. Okay, so when we start saying stuff, or coaches start saying, that was on the floor, that's when your response is, Coach, that's continuous motion. They're allowed to finish their habitual movement. I'm telling you, no coach is going to question you. They don't know what habitual movement means. Okay, the shooter doesn't have to be airborne, because again, the contact that they are absorbing may prevent them from getting up into the air. Okay. And oftentimes the player is still on the floor when the contact occurs. But remember, they're still allowed to pivot or step through and then extend to release the shot. Okay. So we get away from that by only using approved signals and mechanics. If you're going to say that the contact was before then I come up with, no, that's before. no shot. Okay, but not on the floor. Okay, no score. Before the try, again, anything other than on the floor. Now, we have to understand what the shooter also can or cannot do. The shooter is, as I keep saying, they are legally permitted to finish the customary arm movement that starts the habitual try. They are permitted to move their foot in any prescribed. They can do that. They can finish their pivot. They can finish their spin move as long as they don't travel. Right? If they travel, continuous motion is out the window because now we have a travel. Okay? But they are allowed to go up and under or to, like I said, to finish the spin move because that is still deemed a legal part of their habitual try. All right? Now, what can't the shooter do? As I said, they can't travel. We can't allow players to travel and then get an and one because now we're penalizing the defense twice. We're going to call a foul on them, and then we're going to let the free throw shooter go to the shooter go to the free throw line after we let them travel. It's got to be one or the other, right? They're not allowed to have an illegal dribble. Okay, so we have to get better as officials. We're making sure we can adjudicate this ruling. And how do we get better? Again, you have to know what is deemed to be in the act of shooting. When does that try begin? Watch that play start, develop, and finish. When did the contact occur? Because if the contact occurred after the ball was released, we no longer have continuous motion. Okay? Where was the player? Where's the ball, as I said? What did the player do? Right? Again, we allow the shooter to finish what they need to finish. Okay? And was there any type of interruption? Right? Because if there's some type of interruption, if they're going up and then they dish the ball and there's contact, that's not a shot. We may have a foul for illegal contact, but we're not having a shooting foul unless the team is in the bonus. Okay, so again, things to just be mindful of. All right? If the foul that is being called is not against the shooter, then we don't have continuous motion. Okay, remember, we can have a foul away from the ball. All right? So again, don't be so quick to say, no, that goal doesn't count because the ball may have been getting released while you're making that call away from that. Again, just slow yourself down. And if necessary, get together with your partner and have a conversation about, did the shooter release the ball when I was blowing the whistle? Because I was in the lead. I may not have even noticed that there was a shot about to be taken. Okay, so don't be in a rush to get to the table and then complicate things. Okay, so when a foul is committed by the non-shooting team, every player that's in the act of shooting remains in the act of shooting, and continuous motion applies unless they travel or they dribble or they pass the ball or time expires. So if there's an interruption, okay, then continuous motion is over. Okay, so again, slow yourself down. Don't be like that official in that last video that he was so happy he finally blew the whistle and got a foul that he lost sight of. All right, well, why did I just make that call? So what should I have allowed that player to do? All right, so again, that's very important. All right, so with that being said, are there any questions? Any questions?
Charlene, I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, just want to make sure that I understood and this was explained correctly. So I have a foul. They're in the habitual motion.
Mm-hmm.
They, for some reason, because of the contact, just cannot release the ball, and let's say they travel.
Yep.
What are we doing with that play?
We're still shooting. Okay. So again, remember, it comes down to your judgment. Did you believe that player was attempting to shoot the ball? Because if so, then yes, we're in a continuous motion situation. Even though they couldn't release it because of the contact, if in your judgment you deem that you believe that player was attempting a try, but the contact prevented them from releasing the ball, we're shooting, whether it's 2 or 3.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's a great question.
Great, great, great.
So
Anybody else got any
one
questions?
question, Miss
Sure.
Charlene. If the foul occurs away from the ball,
Mm-hmm.
where does the play go from there? The foul is away from the ball. Is the play stopped?
So the foul occurs away from the ball.
Right.
I need to know, and my partner is the one I'm going to rely on right now. I need to know whether or not that shot that was it released while I was blowing the whistle? Because if that player released the ball as I'm blowing the whistle, I can't stop the ball. So we might have a situation where I'm scoring that basket, I'm
Mm-hmm.
counting that foul, and then that team may be getting the ball back for a throw in. Or if they're in the bonus, the player that was actually fouled is going to the free throw line to shoot, not the shooter, the other
Oh,
player.
okay.
Okay.
So the basket will count,
If it went in, yes.
and then the fouling team or the opposing team will get the.
On a different player on that team.
Uh-huh.
So what I may want to do is because what's going to happen is you're going to blow the whistle and you didn't know that the basket was being shot, and then you're going to hear a reaction. Go
Right.
to your partner. I had a foul over here on a push. Did that shot get released while I was blowing my whistle, before I blew my whistle? Because if so, we're counting it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, let's say the basket went in. That team is still getting the ball back. And the way they're going to resume play is based on whether or not they're in the bonus. Because if the team's in the bonus, then the player that was fouled away from the ball is now going to the free throw line. If the team's not in the bonus, that team is just going to have a throw in. Spot closest to where the foul was.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why I say it's important when you blow the whistle, like just slow your brain down as much as you can, because there may be a lot of information that you need to take in. You don't want to go to the table and just report your foul, and now the coaches go, so does that basket count? And you're like, what basket?
True.
Okay?
True. Thanks, Miss Charlene.
Absolutely.
Great question.
Hopefully you can get a 5-point play out of that.
You could.
If they were shooting a 3.
Yes, you could.
Yep.
Great. Well, great questions, everybody. Anybody else got any
Absolutely.
questions?
Charlene, let me interject to just one little thing, even about
Sure.
continuous motion. Guys, guys and gals, this is becoming a team officiating play in general,
Mhm.
not just the play that Charlene was asked about, that Daryl asked about. This is becoming a now, because of the way the game is, we need to make this decision as a crew, not as an individual. So what I'm saying is, do not be so quick to wave off shots. If
Yes.
we know that we have a player going to the basket at any point, we should blow the whistle and have a conversation, or at least look to our partners, especially make sure that these plays are actually continuous motion or they're not, because they might be where your partner doesn't call the foul, but they know they were fouled well before that shot, or they
Mhm.
were already in the act of shooting, and maybe you're seeing the part of the play. So don't be afraid to blow the whistle and go like, Clarence, Charlene, they're going up. You got them going up too. Yes, I got them
Mhm.
going up. Now we're going
Mhm.
up. Instead of it being boom, no shot,
Mhm.
ball goes in the
Mhm.
basket, and now we got to have a conversation about, well, wait a minute, the shot went in the basket, we're waving it off. That has to be, we have to take our time and make that more of a team officiating play instead of
Right.
what we used to do. And I'm working on this too, because I wave off shots probably way too quickly in some
Mhm.
situations. I had a play I showed on my page where I waved it off too quickly. We got to just slow
Mhm.
down and make this a
Mhm.
crew decision.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great point, Jeff. Great
Yes.
point.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mhm. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank Charlene for another wonderful presentation. Once again, she's hitting the ball out the park with these presentations. I mean, we getting some of the best training in the country right here. So thank you so much, Charlene, for being on the call
Absolutely.
and helping us out. We're definitely going to have you come back again sometime in the future, or next week. Like I said, for those who got on the call late, next week we're gonna just have an open forum where we're just gonna ask questions, any question pertaining to rules or professionalism on and off the court,
Mhm.
going to camp, whatever it may be. Feel free to reach out to us and let us know. We definitely want to answer your questions because, again, the whole purpose of doing this training is to empower you to make sure that you are well versed in your rules and knowing the things you need to know. So when you get out there on the court, that you can do an excellent job at officiating the basketball game.
Yes,
So
sir.
once again, Charlene, thank you so much for being on the call.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Awesome. I also want to say a big hello. Thank you, Jeff Jewett, for being on the call as well. Jeff, if you want to say a few words to everybody, feel free to do so. Jeff is with the IBO as well.
Thanks,
Just feel
Jeff.
free.
Thanks, Charlene.
Yeah, Jeff
You're
Jewett, if you want to say a
welcome.
few words, feel free to do so real quick.
Now, guys, we're just in the full swing of the season. We have to start locking in. I know we're gonna go here for a couple weeks and then we'll take a small break, but this is a great time of year to start looking at guys and gals that are working during tournaments and things of shootouts of some sort. If you are a younger official and you're not working, if you're a sophomore official, freshman official, especially in Chicago area where they play sometimes multiple levels on the same night, stick around and watch the veteran officials. It makes so much. I had a official do that on Saturday. They worked the game ahead of us, and they stayed around for at least a half. Even came in and asked questions. It was actually great that they came in and asked some questions about about certain plays that we had. I mean, it wasn't one much of a game, but I think we need to do more of that. We got away from that, I guess, before maybe a little bit before COVID. And COVID, we seem like we just get our bag and we leave. Spend some time if you really want to learn this craft. You got to talk to officials. Being on this call is great, but sometimes you get to ask in real time what an official did and why they did certain things that they did, and maybe even just understand little things like how they dealt with coaches. Next week, I'll go over some stuff that I think that kind of we need to know, but we really want your questions next week and your commentary and anything that we can help you with, because there's so many little things that a lot of times we do not think about to bring up. We want you guys to ask questions and to get deep into some of the stuff, because there's a lot of little things that we don't talk about. Just even how you communicate before a game. I had a situation this weekend where the official almost went to the wrong site, and we found out the morning of, because he was a late add to a game. And just stuff like that, we just need to discuss a little bit
Mhm.
more, not just plays. Yes, plays are important, but if you don't get on the court at the proper time, that's going to be a bigger problem than
Mhm.
calling plays.
Mhm.
Or you're
That's
going to
Mhm.
cause people like Charlene and Gary and Fred Alden and Mark Zuckerski all kind of problems because you don't show up to the game, and now we got to deal with some other thing. Now we got to work two-person or
Mhm.
one person because you didn't show up
Mhm.
properly. Those are things that are just as important. So please bring your questions. We're not going to stay that long tonight, I don't think. We'll stay a little bit to answer some questions, but guys, bring your questions next week. Add people to this call, please, and get us all to get on the same page throughout the state of Illinois
Mhm.
and actually across the country. Because if Charlene is telling you to do something in Connecticut, I can tell you they're doing it in Iowa, they're doing it in Wisconsin, they're doing it in Florida. They're just different. They might have some different structures, different uniforms, what they wear, but we all basically do the same thing, or the same
Right.
basic
Right.
thing. I'll say it that way.
Right. Right.
So
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, thank you, Jeff, for chiming in with that. Jeff Jewett, you're on the call. Do you want to say a few words? He's with IBO as well, along with Charlene Shepard. Would you like to say a few words, Jeff Jewett, if you're still on the call?
Yeah, I always like to hear Charlene. I always pick up something from her, and same thing with you and Jeff. You guys hit it on the head when you say we're always learning. We're always learning,
Mhm.
and it's good to be able to access this. I kind of stumbled on it by accident, but I'm glad I did. And Charlene, another fine job, and
Thank you, sir.
I look forward to following. all you guys and gals in the future. Good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Real quick, I don't know if for those that are IBO members, you may not have paid attention to this, but hold on, let me reshare my screen. IBO has just dropped another golden situation where we actually have a audio pregame. You can listen to the pregame or audio file on your way while you're driving to your game, or if you're just listening in your car or at home or wherever you are. I'll just play a little snippet of it, but this is just this is for the crew of two. They're working on the crew of three that'll be coming out sometime in the future. But for the crew of two, I'll just play a little bit of it so you can hear what it sounds like.
2025-26 audio pregame, crew of two. Welcome to the 2025-2026 IBO audio pregame. Whether you're driving to a game, preparing in your locker room, or just want to refresh your pregame mindset, this recording will walk you through every major point of the IBO pregame card for crew of two mechanics. Section 1, pregame on the court. The crew should arrive on the court at least 15 minutes before game time. The referee observes the visiting team, and the umpire observes the home team. The referee and umpire may switch positions later on in the warm-up period to observe the other team if they so desire. The referee should make it a point to identify the site administrator so they know who to turn to if any issues arise during the game. During warm-ups, check the court and equipment for issues, ensuring that the coaching box is properly marked. There is an X on the floor in front of the scorer's table where substitutes should report. The backboards are appropriately padded, and the basket and nets are in good condition.
I'm just playing a snippet just so it get you an idea of what they have. So this is in the members portal. So for those of you all that are IBO members, this is one of the reasons why I tell you, if you're not a member, you need to become a member because they have a plethora of resources. Anything you need to know, anything you want to learn, again, is right here in the IBO members area. Again, this is just exactly what you would see if you became a member. You have access to all of these various training tools. So no matter what your learning style is, they have a wide variety of resources to help you become a better official. So definitely take advantage of it. Again, that when I saw the email for that, I was just like, okay, here we go. Another wonderful thing to add to the library. So this is great. Charlene, I don't know if you want to chime in on that a little bit and just talk about how officials can maybe use that to kind of help them get ready for their pregame and pregaming for game situations.
I think it's a great tool for whoever is the R. If you're not someone who's used to being the R or used to leading the pregame, this is a great tool to kind of get your mind connected to the things that you need to be talking about. You can also decide as a crew that you both listen to it, and that way by the time you get to the game in the locker room getting ready, you can kind of just review some of the things that you need to go over versus everything. I think it's also a great tool for newer officials or younger officials because, again, there's a lot of information that can be taken in, and you're like, oh my God, continuous motion and being a good partner and shot clock. And then you forget all about the fact that you got to have a pregame. So, again, it's a great way to just give you some basic information to talk about before your game. Again, the whole purpose of the pregame is to connect you and your partner to be on the same page for the game that night. Don't talk about your game 2 nights before. Don't talk about I got this big game in 2 weeks. 2 weeks doesn't matter. What are we doing tonight? So I got to connect with my partner tonight. This is some great stuff to talk about. And as I always say, your pregame is going to change as the season goes on. So what you're going to be talking about in December at your pregame should be a different pregame by mid-January because by now teams have been playing. They're back, they're in their routine. You should have some games under your belt now. You know what you feel good about. So use the pregame to talk about the stuff that you really need to get better about. All right. So don't spend a lot of time talking about the jump ball. There's usually only one jump ball a game. 99% of the time we only do one, and unless you go to overtime, and that's rare. So talk about the things in the pregame that you need to work on, that you need to get better on. Have your partner hopefully be honest about that stuff so that you guys know, or ladies and gents know, how to support each other on the court. If I'm working with Jeff and I say to Jeff, listen, I'm not very good at the foul procedure with get into the reporting area. So just kind of keep an eye on that while I'm doing it, and then we'll talk about it, in between each quarters, and he can then say to me, yeah, you had great positioning, you got to the reporting area, but I couldn't hear you. So if I couldn't hear you, then the table probably can't hear you. So use your voice, use your words, use your signals to communicate. So again, that's how we grow as officials. Use your partner to help enhance and build and grow your skills so that again, every game you go to, you're the type of official that people want to work with as opposed to, oh God, I got Jeff tonight. All right. Don't be that person. Grow every game. There's something for us all to learn. You just heard Jeff Jewett say, I learned something tonight. Jeff's been around forever and a day. So every single game, every single season, learn something to enhance your game so that you're growing, so that you can get to where you want to be as an official instead of asking, why aren't I there yet? To ask that question, you got to get in the mirror. Okay. And then you got to be honest with yourself. And as Clarence said, with all this information available to you, there should be no reason why you lag. You're not going to learn it all overnight, but give yourself some grace. Get in, watch plays, go to RefQuest, answer the questions, see if you understand why you answered it that way. Did I apply the rule correctly? Because by the time they release it, they're not just going to release the answer. They're going to release the answer with the rule book terminology and information that goes along with it. So you can start saying, okay, I'm good with that rule. Let me try something else. So again, take advantage of it.
Absolutely, and they just dropped this training video on court coverage. 13 minutes of great information on court coverage in your RefQuest library. All IABO members, you have access to it. And a little tip I was told from one of our from TJ actually. He said that he's going to try to release a training video at least once a week, or maybe in the upcoming weeks. So there may be a few more training videos that'll be in your library. So definitely take advantage of this. Again, $35 a year. You get access to this 24/7. So no matter where you refereeing games at, you got a ton of resources to refer back to keep you engaged, to keep making sure your mind stays sharp, that you know what you're doing, how you can deal with different situations, because we know every game is not always the same, but just how to manage these games. And that's very important. Because again, we want to be a reflection for these younger officials that are out here so that they can learn from us as the veteran officials. So when they become veteran officials, they can do the same thing and pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. So again, just take advantage of this. We highly encourage it. Again, $35 a year. You can't beat this to have access to all of this great training material. Charlene Shepard and Jeff Jewett and everybody with the IBO organization that have put a lot of hard work into making sure that this platform, what you see here, they put a lot of hard work into this. And so definitely take advantage of it. Definitely take advantage of it. But thank you once again, Charlene, for being on the call. Thank you, Jeff, for chiming in. We definitely have you come back and do some presentations for us as well. This is open to any and everybody. So, feel free to share the link. Again, we'll be back next Monday, like Jeff Rutledge mentioned, just to kind of field any questions that you guys may have. So at this time, I want to thank everybody for being on the call. We'll stick around and answer any questions that you may have, but we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being on the call. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays,
Good night.
everybody.
Hey, cool.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Cool. I
I
don't
can-
know what